Shabbat Shalom. I hope that this pre-Shabbat video finds you and your family healthy and safe. And if you live here in Rockland County, enjoying this beautiful Erev Shabbos afternoon. Noach ish tzadik tamim bedorotav et Elohim idalach Noach. This week's Parsha Noach opens on a seemingly positive note in describing Noah as an ish tzadik tamim bedorotav, a righteous man in his generation who walks with God. The Parsha then goes on to describe a human population 10 generations after Adam and Chava that has become corrupt. Ki shchit kol basar et dar kol haaretz. All flesh has corrupted its way on earth. The Midrash points out that there are two different ways to understand this description of Noah. Either Noah was a righteous man despite the corrupt generation in which he lived, or he was a righteous man in comparison to the generation in which he lived. In other words, did he rise miraculously above the corruption to achieve greatness, or was he merely a marginally better version of the common man at the time? In his opening words to the Parsha, Rashi chooses to teach the more negative portrayal of Noah, that is, that his greatness was only in contrast to the evil that was around him. Rashi and other commentators further degrade Noah by drawing a sharp contrast between Noah and the next great biblical personality to emerge from the biblical narrative, Abraham, noting that while Noah walks with God, Abraham, according to the text in Breshit, walks before the Lord. There may have been an element of greatness to Noah, but what the classical commentators really wanted us to get out of the story was the greatness of Abraham, who was called by God in next week's Parsha of Lech Lecha to be the very first Jew. Preeminent Talmudist of our time, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, recently of blessed memory, views the Noah-Abraham paradigm differently. He sees it as a study in existential loneliness. Both Noah and Abraham stand alone. Like many of the prophets that would come generations later, they face a hostile environment and they have a unique calling to change the world. Steinsaltz quotes Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who said about righteous people that tzaddik, even when he is surrounded by good people, must be ready for the loneliness and singularity that Noah and Abraham experienced. One who is constantly enmeshed in society, says Steinsaltz, can reach important achievements, but to reach the path of absolute truth requires total disregard of other people's opinions. Today we might use the expression, "it's lonely at the top." And while we could draw 1,000 distinctions, there is a certain common experience in the sad and sobering ending for so many celebrities and other people who are constantly in the public eye. Sometimes the loneliest place is in a crowd. In contrast, there are those who transcend their loneliness and become world changers and visionaries. For Steinsaltz, the difference between a Noah and an Abraham is in how one experiences the lonely predicament of the tzaddik. Every generation, says Steinsaltz, has its flood and its arcs, whether it's an actual flood, an earthquake, a pandemic, or a deluge that extinguishes the spirit. The tzaddik whose response to being alone is to build an ark only for himself ends up a tragic figure, a drunk like Noah, or worse. The Abrahams of the world look beyond themselves as the answer to their loneliness, and they build arks that fit the entire world. Shabbat Shalom.